Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening. So, I'm reading an article out of Demos, An Equal Say and an Equal Chance for All, and it's under the Policy Shop. So, this was put out not very long ago, but I've always known this. And I don't think very many people who, if you don't really read about history, if you don't really read a lot of information that happened, a lot of what happens in the past will affect the future. Let me say that again. Get this out of your head when people say, "Oh, that was a long time ago. Oh, that's old," or that's not happening now. A lot of what has happened from the past affects what is happening now. And so I'm going to read to you about how the GI Bill left out African Americans. And it will shed some light to some people who are unwilling to read the information or just don't know where to look or don't understand why these are put in place like they are and why people are behind economically. And it is not by accident. So it reads how the GI Bill left out African Americans. Veterans Day is always an occasion among progressives to talk up the GI Bill. And indeed, that 1944 legislation was truly remarkable, helping millions of returning veterans go to college and buy homes in the great post war suburban land rush. Unfortunately, we often forget the darker side of this story, which is how African American veterans were denied many of the benefits of the GI Bill. Why is this part of the story important to remember? Because it helps explain the ongoing challenges of African Americans to build wealth and achievement, intergenerational mobility. Economic success in America is often seen as a reflection of what kind of family a person was born into, how hard they worked, and what kinds of opportunities exist in the economy. Of course, though, the story goes much deeper than that. How well a person's parents were positioned financially tends to reflect the well being of the family they grow up and in turn, how the parents and grandparents did previous. So the past does affect the present. So get that out of your head when people say, "Oh, slavery was a long time ago. Oh, Jim Crow was a long time ago." No, what powers and systems were put in place when those eras happened are a reflection of what is going on now. So economic success in America is often seen as a reflection. So let that resonate. In particular, family wealth can take generations to build and confers advantages that grow over time. In your If your great grandparents bought a home, chances are that your grandparents inherited at least some wealth from them, which maybe means that your parents didn't have to take out any loans to go to college and got a helping hand with the down payment of a house early in life in a neighborhood with top schools. So, which means that you got a great public education instead of a lousy one, allowing you to get into a good college and set yourself up to confer advantages on your own kids, and so forth and so on. Research shows that all sorts of positive outcomes associated with household owning assets. And for that reason, the huge racial wealth gap in America should be deeply alarming, especially given how the gap has actually grown in the past 5 years due to the epidemic of foreclosures in the communities of color, and many of them of which were systematically targeted by predatory lenders, including respected banks like Wells Fargo. There are lots of reasons that whites have so much more wealth than non whites. How the GI Bill played out is one of those reasons. Whites were able to use the government guaranteed housing loans that were a pillar of the bill to buy homes in a fast growing suburbs. Those homes subsequently rose greatly in value in the coming decades up to now. even now, creating vast new households, wealth for whites during the post-war era. But Black veterans weren't able to make use of the housing provisions of the GI Bill for the most part. Banks generally wouldn't make loans for mortgages in Black neighborhoods, and African Americans were excluded from suburbs by a combination of deed covenants, which is redlining, and informal racism. In short, the GI Bill helped foster a long term boom in white wealth, but did almost virtually nothing to help Blacks to build wealth. We are still living with the effects of that exclusion today and time to come. But one big upside of the GI Bill is it did pay for many Black veterans to go to college and graduate school. While these veterans were often only able to choose among overcrowded Black colleges, the influx of subsidized Black students forced many white universities to open their doors to non-whites, helping begin the great integration of higher education. So that's when they had the first Black students to go to the first white universities or to include, and then they began the integration process, which most whites didn't want that. So today, and then there were Blacks that were afraid to go to schools with whites because of the fear of retaliation and the bigotry and so on. Today, the U.S. is grappling with how to help hundreds of thousands of veterans who have served in Iraq and Afghanistan, a great many of those whom were Black and Latinos. We need to remember that the choices we make today in regard to these folks will reverberate for generations to come, which is what we're experiencing now. And they talk so heavily about, you have people putting up stuff about there's no white privilege. Don't listen to that. There is privileges. And it was set up by systems like governments and states so that certain groups were able to accomplish things and had things at their disposal, opportunities, resources, as opposed to others who they didn't have access or they had very little access to opportunities. So even with that, even at the end of this, it says that they had opportunities to go to college, but what's the use when you have a college education and degrees and you're not able to live in the neighborhoods that you work so hard to go to school and you work at these jobs, but you're not able to live in certain neighborhoods around certain people. You're not able to get loans like other people are able to get loans. You're not able to eat in restaurants and go to certain places. Well, now you can eat in certain places. Well, maybe not. We just had 2 Black men arrested in Starbucks simply because they were waiting on a friend and they asked to use the restroom, and they had a policy that they didn't want anybody that wasn't a paying customer to use the restroom. Okay. But everybody else, they can sit and use the Wi-Fi and talk and lollygag, and they don't have to be worrying about getting arrested. But these 2 Black men get arrested, and it was called in that there was a disturbance and fighting, running, hitting. Nobody's got a weapon, but they're getting arrested and they were held for 9 hours. Okay, so I feel like we're going backwards. We're going back in time, but only it's dressed up. It's more fancy now. And so this is right here. This is just but one of the many articles. Books are out there that talk about the GI Bill and how it has impacted the people that you see today that are able to get in homes, that are able to get in places, and that they can live in certain areas or can't live in certain areas. Now, some people, it depends now on who's got the money and how much money are you willing to put out. But that doesn't mean that you're safeguarded just because you have money, because sometimes they will use that to overcharge you. Well, I won't charge this person as much as I will this person, because this person is Black. So I'm going to overcharge him in rent. I'm going to overcharge him in mortgages. I'm going to give him a predatory loan because he doesn't have any financial literacy. He knows nothing about what's going to happen in the coming years, very shortly, not even years, that his payments are going to balloon up to where he can't even pay for it. He's actually not even paying the mortgage. He's paying interest. And he hasn't even touched paying the mortgage yet. The actual principles, what he's supposed to be paying. But he doesn't know because he's stupid. He's Black. He's illiterate, financially illiterate. So we're gonna take people who are Black and Latino who don't have no literacy about financial stability. They haven't taken any classes. They don't know anything about home ownership because they've never had that opportunity. They just want to get in the home, and we're going to prey upon those people because they're stupid and they're weak and they're vulnerable, and we know what we're doing because we want to get money off of these people. And so that's what's been happening. That is what has been happening. And so you notice that people don't really talk that much about this. I'm talking about it. I'm talking about it, and I'm going to keep talking about it. And if they don't like it, that's too bad because I'm telling the truth. And so people to sit up there and lie and say there's no privileges, they're totally disillusioned. And I have to say, excuse me for whatever the background noise or whatever, there's nothing that I can do about it. You might get hear it, but the message is more important that I'm trying to get out, is that people are not being honest. They're not telling the truth, that this stuff, the systems that have been put in place have also perpetuated in the racism and in excluding people and including certain others. And so people have adopted those beliefs, and so they do it in places like Starbucks. That's why we see this kind of stuff. Don't be surprised. And it's going to be other stuff that's going to happen. That's why we see policing where they target certain individuals differently than others, because that has already been ingrained in the minds of some folks, and it never will go away. And that's the reason why it's happening. So unfortunately, we live in a world where some people, they view people a certain way and others another way. And then you get treated that way, even in your daily living, like owning a home, getting into certain schools. Like we just had an interview, kid, he got into 20 schools, accepted to 20 universities, and 2 anchor women said it was obnoxious and ridiculous. Nothing positive. If he had been white, there wouldn't have been no words about obnoxious and ridiculous. It would have been, oh, he's exceptional, he's so great, and all this kind of stuff. At the end of their interview, they tried to clean it up and say, oh, he's a amazing individual. No, but you said it was obnoxious and ridiculous because he happened to be a Black guy that has these abilities where he's so intelligent that he got accepted to 20 schools, 20 universities. And you said that you had a problem with that because now these students are waitlist. Which students are you talking about? Which students? What students are you talking about? Is it Black students that were waitlisted or white students that were waitlisted? No, it was white students. I'm gonna give you the answer right now. She didn't like it because there's 20 universities and white kids had to take a back seat because this Black kid who has a brain of no other, he totally wiped them out. He was able to get in. He's able to be accepted to 20 colleges. They hate hearing that stuff, but they like seeing when 2 Black guys are not doing anything and the police is gaffling them up and taking them out of a Starbucks. Or you have Black people getting shot by the police on camera, and then that officer gets to walk away scot-free, and he has no repercussions. He may get a little suspension, but he's eventually exonerated for his actions of murdering a Black person. Okay, with that being said, enough said, and that pretty much is this video right here, how the GI Bill left out Americans, African Americans, that is. And it was posted by a David Callahan, November 11, 2013. Thank you for listening.